Have you ever walked away from a conversation and felt like something was off, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it? Maybe someone said something that left you feeling uneasy, but you brushed it off as a joke, or maybe you didn't want to cause any trouble. But deep down, you knew it wasn't just a harmless comment. It was more than that. It was a subtle shift in the conversation, a manipulation tactic that left you feeling small, confused, or even guilty. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Manipulation can be tricky, and the people who use it are often very skilled at hiding it behind humor, charm, or seemingly innocent comments. It's not always obvious, especially when it's coming from someone you care about. And when you've been in these situations for a long time, whether it's a family member, a romantic partner, or a coworker, it can be difficult to recognize it for what it is. But today, I want to talk about a few phrases and behaviors that are often used to manipulate you, and why you should never brush them off as jokes. Let's start with a classic one that often flies under the radar: "I'm just kidding." Now, we've all said it, right? Maybe we said something a little sharp and then quickly added, "I'm just kidding," to soften it, to make sure no one's feelings are hurt. But when someone says this to you repeatedly, especially after making a hurtful or controlling comment, it's time to pay attention. Have you ever had someone tell you, "Oh, come on, I was just joking. Why are you so sensitive?" Or maybe, "You always take things so seriously." It's easy to dismiss these comments, especially if you've been taught not to overreact or make a scene. But when this happens over and over, it's not just a simple joke, it's a manipulation tactic designed to invalidate your feelings. It shifts the blame onto you, making you feel like you're the one with the problem, not them. And worse, it keeps you from addressing the real issue. This is particularly common in family settings, where people may feel entitled to make jokes at your expense. I remember a woman named Kathy telling me about a dinner party she attended at her sister's house. Her sister made a comment about how Kathy had gained a little weight, but she followed it up with, "Oh, come on, I'm just kidding." Kathy laughed it off, but later, as she reflected on the night, she realized she felt humiliated. It wasn't the first time her sister had made comments like that, always hiding behind the joke excuse. But Kathy had been conditioned to laugh it off, to not rock the boat. Over time, she began to doubt herself, thinking maybe she was just too sensitive. But here's the truth: there's nothing wrong with standing up for yourself when someone's words are hurtful, even if they say, "I was just joking." If someone tries to hide their manipulation behind humor, it's a sign they know exactly what they're doing. They're testing your boundaries. They're hoping you'll dismiss the comment and move on, so they don't have to face any consequences for being disrespectful. But your feelings are valid, and you deserve to be treated with respect. The next time someone says, "I'm just kidding," and it feels off, remember, it's okay to respond by saying something like, "I know you might be joking, but that really hurt my feelings." You don't need to apologize for how you feel. You have every right to set the tone for how you want to be treated. Now, let's move on to another subtle form of manipulation. Have you ever had someone tell you, "You're overreacting," or "You're making a big deal out of nothing"? It's a phrase that's used to diminish your emotions, to make you feel like you're the one who's being unreasonable. It's a tactic that's often used by people who want to avoid accountability for their behavior. I've heard from so many women who've been in relationships, whether it's with a partner, a friend, or even a colleague, where their emotions were minimized or invalidated. Take Sarah, for example. She had been in a long-term relationship with someone who would constantly dismiss her feelings by saying, "You're just being dramatic," whenever she tried to express that something wasn't right. Over time, Sarah began to doubt her own emotions. Was she overreacting? Was she being too sensitive? But here's the truth: if something doesn't sit right with you, it's not an overreaction. Your feelings are your truth, and they matter. When someone tells you that you're overreacting, it's not about you, it's about them avoiding the responsibility of dealing with the issue at hand. They want to control the narrative, to shift the focus onto you and your exaggeration rather than addressing the real problem. This is especially common in toxic relationships, where one person seeks to dominate the other by diminishing their emotions. In these situations, it's important to trust your own perception. If you feel hurt, frustrated, or upset, those feelings are valid, and now that we've talked about a couple of the ways manipulation can sneak into conversations, whether through jokes or dismissing your feelings, let's explore another tactic that often gets overlooked: the emotional guilt trip. You've probably heard phrases like, "After everything I've done for you," or "I can't believe you do this to me after all I've sacrificed." Sound familiar? This is especially common in family relationships, where someone might use guilt as a way to manipulate your behavior. Imagine this: you've made plans to spend the weekend with friends, but your mom calls and says, "I really need you this weekend. I've been feeling so lonely, and I don't know what I'll do without you." She says it with that tone that makes you feel like you're abandoning her if you don't cancel your plans. You're left standing there, trying to balance your own needs with the guilt she's just placed on your shoulders. It's a powerful tactic because it plays on your sense of obligation and love. But here's the thing: guilt is not love. Love doesn't demand that you sacrifice your happiness or well-being just to please someone else. Love respects boundaries. And if someone is using guilt to manipulate you, it's important to recognize it for what it is. Now, I know this can be really hard. Guilt can be such a heavy emotion, and when it's used against you, it can make you feel like the worst person in the world for not giving in to the other person's demands. But remember, you are allowed to prioritize yourself. You are allowed to say no without feeling like you've failed someone else. In these situations, it's crucial to acknowledge the guilt you're feeling, but also remind yourself that your needs and desires matter. A simple but firm response could be, "I understand you're feeling lonely, and I want to support you, but I've already made plans. I hope you can understand." It's not about being cold or unkind, it's about setting a boundary that preserves your peace. You don't have to carry the weight of someone else's emotions, especially when those emotions are being used to manipulate you into doing something you don't want to do. Another example of this guilt trip comes up in romantic relationships, too. Have you ever been in a situation where your partner says, "If you really loved me, you'd," or maybe they say, "I'm only asking for this because I care about you"? It sounds innocent, right? But these kinds of statements often have a hidden agenda. The moment someone tells you that your love for them is conditional on fulfilling their request, they're using manipulation. Here's the reality: love isn't a transaction. You don't owe anyone your time, energy, or attention just because they say you should. If someone tries to make you feel guilty for not giving them what they want, it's not love, it's control. In these situations, you need to remind yourself that it's okay to have your own boundaries and desires. True love respects both people's needs, and it never demands sacrifice at the expense of your well-being. If someone tries to manipulate you with guilt, you can respond with something like, "I care about you, but I also have my own needs, and they matter too." We need to respect each other's boundaries. It's a delicate balance, but you deserve to have your needs met as much as anyone else's. Now, let's look at another tactic that's often used in the workplace: the "I thought you were better than that" comment. You've probably had a boss or coworker say something like, "I'm surprised you would act this way, I thought you were more professional than that." It's subtle, but it's a form of emotional manipulation designed to make you question your own professionalism or character. This is especially common in toxic work environments, where someone in power might use this kind of guilt to control how you behave or make you feel like you're failing. When someone says this to you, it's meant to create self-doubt. They want you to feel like you're not living up to some ideal standard they've set, and that can be really destabilizing. But remember, your worth isn't tied to anyone else's perception of you. It's easy to get lost in the need for approval, especially in a work setting, but it's important to recognize when someone is using your sense of self against you. If you find yourself in this situation, try taking a step back and asking yourself, is this criticism fair? Is it coming from a place of genuine concern, or is it just another way for them to control you? More often than not, these comments are less about you and more about the person making them. They want to assert their power over you, and they're using guilt and shame to do so. A good way to handle this kind of manipulation is by staying calm and grounded. You might say, I understand that you're disappointed, but I stand by my decision. Let's talk about how we can move forward. It shifts the focus from your character to the situation at hand, and it shows that you're not going to let someone's manipulation define you. As we explore these different tactics, one thing becomes clear: manipulation isn't just about big, overt actions. It's often the small, subtle comments that can leave us feeling unsure of ourselves. And when they happen over and over, they can start to erode our confidence and sense of self-worth. But here's the good news: once you start recognizing these manipulative behaviors, you can begin to protect yourself. You don't have to accept them, and you don't have to feel guilty for standing up for your needs. It's all about finding your voice and reclaiming your power. I'm so glad you're sticking with this conversation. You're already doing such important work by tuning in and recognizing how manipulation might show up in your life. The more you can spot these patterns, the easier it will be to protect your peace and set boundaries that honor your worth. So, let's dive into another common manipulation tactic that can be a real challenge, especially in family or close relationships: the silent treatment or withdrawal of affection. Now, this might look different depending on the person, but it's essentially when someone shuts down emotionally as a way to control you. Maybe you've been in a situation where someone, maybe a partner or even a grown child, stops talking to you or becomes distant because you've done something they didn't like. You might find yourself walking on eggshells, unsure of what you did wrong, desperate to fix things and make them come around. The thing is, this isn't a normal way to deal with conflict, it's a manipulation tactic. I spoke with a woman named Ellen, who was dealing with this exact situation with her daughter. Whenever Ellen tried to bring up something that bothered her, like feeling overwhelmed with the responsibilities of caring for her mother, her daughter would immediately shut down. She'd go days without responding to texts or calls, acting cold and distant. Ellen, desperate to reconnect, would apologize, even though she hadn't done anything wrong, and try to make it right. But in the process, she was giving her daughter control over her emotions and actions. Here's the thing: the silent treatment is a form of emotional blackmail. It's an attempt to make you feel guilty or responsible for fixing the situation, even when you've done nothing wrong. The manipulator is hoping that you'll go after them, apologize, or act in a way that pleases them, simply to restore the peace. But real peace doesn't come from sacrificing your dignity to avoid someone's emotional tantrum. If you're dealing with this kind of manipulation, here's a gentle but powerful way to handle it: don't chase after them. Don't allow their silence to dictate your emotional state. Instead, give yourself permission to stay calm and centered. If you feel the need to address the behavior, you can say something like, I understand that you might be upset, but I'm not going to engage in this silence. We can talk when you're ready to have a respectful conversation. It's important to stand firm and not fall into the trap of guilt or appeasement. I know it's not easy, especially when you love the person involved. But remember, you deserve relationships where communication is open, and both parties can express their feelings without resorting to manipulation or silence. It's okay to set that boundary, and it's okay to take care of your own emotional needs. Another manipulation tactic that's so common, and often disguised as concern, is when someone says, I'm only doing this because I care about you. This is often used to justify controlling behavior, whether it's in romantic relationships or family dynamics. Maybe you've had a partner or family member say something like, I don't think you should go to that event, it's not good for you, or I think you should wear this, it'll look better on you. At first glance, it might seem like they're just trying to help, but when this kind of help crosses boundaries, it can feel more like control. Let's take a look at an example. Jane had been dating Mark for about 6 months when he started expressing concerns about the friends she spent time with. He'd say things like, I don't think you should hang out with Susan so much, she's bad for you, or why do you always wear that? You know, I prefer you in something else. At first, Jane thought Mark was just being protective, caring even. But over time, she started to realize that his comments weren't about her well-being. They were about controlling her choices and isolating her from her friends. This is something manipulative people often do. they cloak their desire for control under the guise of caring. They act as though they know what's best for you, even when it's clearly not about what you want or need. If someone says they're only doing something because they care, but their actions make you feel trapped, powerless, or like you're losing yourself, it's time to set a boundary. You can say something like, "I understand that you care about me, but I need to make my own choices. I'm capable of deciding what's best for me." It's crucial to assert your autonomy and not let anyone dictate how you should live your life, whether it's about who you spend time with, what you wear, or where you go. Remember, it's okay to love and care for someone, but you don't have to lose yourself in the process. Healthy relationships thrive on mutual respect, not on control disguised as care. Let's pause and reflect for a moment. We've talked about a few key manipulative behaviors, but if you're noticing these patterns in your life, it's important to take a step back and ask yourself, how do these behaviors make you feel? Do you feel empowered, or do you feel drained? Do you feel heard, or do you feel invisible? These feelings are your body's way of telling you that something isn't right, and it's okay to listen to them. You have the power to protect your peace and your boundaries. The people who love and respect you will understand when you set boundaries, and they'll support you in your journey toward emotional freedom. But the people who manipulate you will fight against those boundaries, because they thrive on controlling your emotions and actions. If you're noticing these manipulative tactics in your life, don't ignore them. Take action, trust yourself, and remember that your worth is not defined by someone else's ability to control you. In the next part, we'll talk more about how to heal from emotional manipulation and reclaim your sense of self. It's possible, and you deserve it. Healing doesn't happen overnight, but with every step you take, you are reclaiming your power, your peace, and your joy. You are not too old to set boundaries. You are not too late to heal. You are just getting started. Stay with me, and we'll continue this journey together. You've got this.